This is the Padua Podcast Network.
Discipline is sticking to a plan. That's all it is. So at this point, I'm not as much concerned about how well I made a decision, but that I force a decision every single time. Running a Fever, episode 172, Eat Right by Thinking Right. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Michael Davis, your life-loving, long-living companion on the road to better health and longer life. My goal is not just to add years to my life, but to add life to my years and live a long, healthy, happy, active life right up to the very end, whether it's 80, 90, or 122. So welcome. And by the way, if you're listening on YouTube, thank you. Please hit the subscribe button. If you haven't been to YouTube, there are some videos there. So go check it out, runningafever.com/YouTube. It's a beautiful day at Lake Fayetteville, and the trail, as we call it, it's really a sidewalk kind of. Right now I'm going along a street here, lined with trees, and this long concrete walk part of the trail, and it's drying. It's half dry, and there's kind of streaks of dryness and wetness, and then the left side is still wet. But I haven't felt a drop of rain since I came out here. It's just very muggy this morning. Fitness report. I've been trying to get some more activity in my life because I've gone a little too far over. You know, as I talked about my struggles last episode, and you know, I'm trying to put more activity in than usual, just specifically for this purpose. Not that I want to just be exercising all the time, but some days I will double up and I'll lift weights and I'll have a walk in the evening. I think I did that last week. I took a couple of walks and also played racquetball, but that's usually in place of lifting weights because I do it early in the morning. So I'm doing that, lifting weights 4 days a week and playing racquetball 2 days a week. And I'm happy to say the last 3 times I hadn't had any serious problems. I don't want to call it a serious injury, but you know, the first, I guess it is a serious injury. It's bursitis, and I still, that kept me out for like 6 weeks, but I still have some soreness there. But it's the kind of thing that I can handle, and hopefully will also get better over time. I don't really feel my knee anymore, you know. It's been over a year since my tragic knee injury that really brought me down for a while. I was just really worried because it was early in my journey. Good morning. But not too worried about it right now. And I've been exercising a while, and hopefully the type of injury that I got. Of course, here's the thing. I did a new type of exercise, right? So that is like, kind of like starting over again. I mean, when you're exercising regularly, your body's in better condition. It has more defenses against injuries, I think, just because of the circulation, the movement that you're doing. But when you start moving in different ways, I think you can expect different risks. And that's what happened, I think, with my move into the racquetball arena. So I'll have to be careful when starting new activities at just sort of easing into them, the same way that I eased into exercise in general a couple of years ago. So the topic for today is Eat Right by Thinking Right. And I know what you're thinking. You know, eat right? Really? How can you have a whole episode on that? You've spent 171 episodes trying to figure out how to eat right. What's the deal? Well, I'm going to look at it in a little bit different way. You know, you kind of got a good point if you're thinking that. Eating right is a very broad topic. And I only have 3 hours for this episode. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just kidding. It's not going to be 3 hours long. You know, I may have an episode that's pushing 2 hours out there. I think some of my early episodes, it was just the whole walk, and it wasn't really cutting out things. But 3 hours would be really, really pushing it. So probably not going to happen, unless that's what you want. And if you'd like to see longer episodes, why not give me a ring, drop me a line, so to speak, at mail@runningatfever.com. Now, I'm coming up on The Dam, which, as you know, is the place of pretty pictures. You've seen plenty of those pictures. If you want to see them, probably the best place to look is YouTube, runningatfever.com/YouTube, and you'll see a bunch of high definition pictures for just about every episode, especially if I don't have live video. I don't know if that's an animal or a machine, but I'm obviously rarely here at this time, and it's about 6. My watch says 6:23. I've actually been out here for over an hour. The sun is just coming up. There's nobody here, really. I think there's one person at the other end of the dam. Also unusual for a Sunday. It looks like the weather's going to be nice, although I do see some clouds overhead. And the moon is still out. So I would expect it to be very crowded later today. But not right now. Right now, it's relatively uncrowded, although you can still hear the traffic in the background. I'm going to take another amazing Lake Fayetteville picture, or 2 or 3, with the sun and the sky, and just, it doesn't get much better than that. So you can probably expect that as the featured photo for today. Back to the subject at hand. Not going to be a 3-hour episode, but I do have quite a bit of information today. I'm going to be looking at how to eat right in terms of sticking to a plan. We know that habit and discipline go hand in hand. I've learned that from my experience, and I've shared it with you along the way. Good habits, bad habits. The more something becomes a habit, the less effort it takes to maintain discipline. What do I mean by discipline? It's nothing to do with spanking. Discipline is sticking to a plan. That's all it is. Sticking to a plan. You say someone is undisciplined, it means they're all over the place. Their life is chaotic. Discipline brings order. So self-discipline is the best kind, probably, I would say. Sometimes you need a little help. I was talking to a friend who has a young employee who is having trouble showing up for work on time. We both agreed he probably could use some time in the military. That might help him to learn discipline and learn self-discipline. So we should always be thinking about habit. I'm always thinking about habit. Breaking bad ones and making good ones. Getting in the habit of thinking through those that we're not sure about. And this is important too. And I have thought kind of out loud on this podcast. That's what I've done. Trying to figure out what's good for me and what's not. Researching, asking questions. I'll give you an example. It's not really clear to me whether an extreme low-calorie day during the course of a week or 2 weeks might be a good thing. A sort of fasting. Talk about intermittent fasting. What if I just had an extreme low-calorie day? I still ate my 3 meals, but I only had between 500 and 1,000 calories, something like that. And sometimes these days I do get below 1,000. It just seems to be what I have to do to make progress sometimes. Is that good or is it not? If I still eat my 3 meals a day. Eating is very important, but I don't know whether that's good or not. I mean, I really need to do some more research on that, and I'm going to do that. I tend to want to go there when I'm not happy with the news from the scale. So gained 2 pounds. Oh, now it's, I'm 5 pounds over for the week. I probably ought to really cut tomorrow and just not eat very much. For one day, does that help or hurt me? Now, it may be a good habit to get into. Maybe it's good for me to do that every week. And maybe a bad habit I want to get out of. I don't know. I need to get more information. So that's what I'm going to do. Can't make a decision without enough information. Or maybe I can, but the more information I have, I want to get enough information to make a good decision. Let's put it that way and leave it. I'm getting kind of confused here and off track. If you're like me, you tend to rationalize. This is what happens when I get in my own head. When I rationalize, I'm coming to a conclusion based usually on emotion or some process that's not rational. Then I come up with rational explanations to explain what I've done. Another word for this is justification. Rationalization, justification, very similar in meaning. Because you make the decision really before you consider the reasons for that decision. It's often how, it's not necessarily bad because we do that for a lot of things. We'll have a good idea, we think, we'll try it and see if we can find out, whether it's good or bad, but we still try it. So it's this emotion, sometimes how we come up with new ideas. Like intermittent fasting, for example. A lot of rain recently, and so the spillway can be very active today. Yeah, if you can hear me, it's really been raining, and it's like a waterfall over here. Ducks are sitting watching it on the spillway. So yeah, that emotion or drive to make a decision immediately often is how we get new ideas, like, for example, my intermittent fasting or extreme low calorie day. But you can't stop there. You have to vet that rationalization. All those things, all those reasons that you come up have to be based on rational ideas, something that makes sense. Now, what makes sense? Probably those things that I've been researching and learning about for a long time. This comes into a plan. I don't have necessarily a rigid plan, but my plan is pretty solid in terms of my diet, exercise, how I deal with medical issues and take care of myself. This is a plan. And so it's, at this point, it's pretty easy to see that I'm deviating from that plan. And this is what we want to talk about, the deviations. When I go off course, I want to think about why I'm doing it. If I've already established good habits, it'll be pretty clear when I'm deviating. Now, this may be just an impulse, but it may be a bad habit trying to work its way back into our behavior. That devil on our shoulder you used to see in the Warner Brothers cartoons. Devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other shoulder. So what do? When I go off course, and it inevitably will happen, we all make mistakes and none of us is perfect all the time. Certainly not me. When I go off course, I want to think about it. I want to think about why I'm doing it. If I already have established good habits, it'll be pretty clear when I'm deviating from them. Now, this may be an impulse or just maybe another bad habit trying to work its way back into my behavior. So I should be able to recognize these interruptions immediately. And then I ask the question, why? Why am I doing this? This is when my core intentions and goals come into play. I said it isn't always a bad thing working on emotion. And the question to ask is, does this support my goals and intentions, or does it not? Does it fit into the plan? And it shouldn't be in the plan if it didn't support my goal. Does it hurt my progress toward any of my goals? I suppose it's possible. I know there are many choices out there, right? So something that I do may or may not hurt my choices, hurt my progress toward my goal. I just thought of another example of this. I live about a 4-minute, just a couple of miles from work, right? Definitely walking distance. If I wanted to walk, I could, at least part of the time. But I don't think it's safe. And my goal, my overall goal, over everything else, is to live a long, healthy, happy, and active life. And if I think something's too dangerous, I don't want to do it if it's going to shorten my life. And one of those top reasons that top causes of death is accidents. So I need to stay away from those. But you can get too extreme on that. I could say, well, I'm not going to drive at all. And that way I'll never be, or ride in a car, and then I'll never be in a traffic accident. That's taken to extreme. But in this case, it could go either way. If I walk to work, I'm getting more exercise, and that could possibly support my goal. But it could also be more dangerous. So some of these could go either way. And, it may not be either or. In that case, you're free to choose whichever one you choose based on the decision that you made, that's not hurting or helping. So a particular thing, behavior, could be good, bad, or neither. We'll find out eventually. Eventually I'll either get in an accident or I won't if I'm walking to work, or neither. Maybe it won't improve my health and so forth. Anyway, we find out eventually if we stick with it, but we can make an informed decision before we get too far into that too. And over time, you're never going to make the right decision every time. Like I said, nobody's perfect. And not only deviating from habits, but also when you're really actually trying to consider these things rationally, we don't always make the right decision. And that's okay. Over time, I think, I can become better at making decisions. There was a time when I thought, well, you should drink, 40 ounces. I don't know how many ounces, 100 ounces, 200 ounces. There was a time when I thought you should drink lots and lots, over too much water, basically. And I didn't know how much was enough water. And I found out that the information I had was based on what bodybuilders do or actors do right before they have to be on camera for a photo shoot or in a bodybuilding competition to get super lean. And it's not healthy to do on a long-term basis. We get better at making decisions over time, I think. And some things we just eventually learn that they're better or worse for us. But really, decision making isn't what this episode is about. It's not the most important thing here. It's important. It's not really what I'm talking about, because you can't even get to that decision if you don't stop when you have an impulse and decide to make a decision. And like many things, it's a lot easier if you decide beforehand. I've decided that I'm going to go to the gym every morning, 5 o'clock, Monday through Saturday. I've already decided that. I don't have to get up every morning and decide. Am I going to the gym? Am I not going to the gym? I'm going. Unless some other variable comes into play, that's what I've decided to do. So the decision is already made. And there you go. But if you have something that's unknown, that's not part of your routine, you have to stop and make that decision. Now, that in itself is a habit, and that's what I'm trying to get into. So the topic is eating right by thinking right. And this can apply to a lot of things, and I've already talked about exercise and choosing which way which mode of transportation I want. But diet is where it hits hard for me, because that's where the impulses come in the most. Is I have an impulse to do something that's not in my routine. So there's two things that go into this decision-making mode. Now I'm trying to form the habit of getting into the decision-making mode, because otherwise you're never going to make the right decision, because you're never going to make a decision at all. Step one, the initial recognition of the act that's invading my routine. As I said before, this is the benefit of having a strong routine, like I've developed over the last 171 episodes. That routine of exercise, diet, and medicine that has gotten me to this point. It's well established, and that's key, right? So because it's well established, it's easier for me to recognize when an anomaly comes in. It's a lot more difficult if you're maybe in a wishy-washy state, like I was in the past. I always wanted to be healthy, but I didn't have a routine, I didn't have a plan. So step one is the initial recognition of that act. The second, step two, is the evaluation of it in relation to my goals. And the decision. I guess I could make this 3 steps. 1, recognizing the act that's invading my routine. 2, evaluating the act in relation to my goals. And 3, making the decision. This is my new habit. So at this point, I'm not as much concerned about how well I made a decision, but that I force a decision every single time. I mean, it's enough at this point. I know decision making is going to get better over time, but it's enough at this point just to get to that decision. A lot of times, all it takes is a second. Just stop. Stop and think, why am I doing this? Does it really fit into my plan? If I force a decision every time, I'm really not acting on impulse, because I'm acting on that decision. Whether it's right or wrong, it's a step forward. It's a beginning. It's a turn in the right direction. Now, I might not have the habit of saying no to dessert all the time, and I don't know if I should. As you know, nothing's off limits for me on my diet. I don't have to say no to dessert. Jean Calment had dessert with every meal. But I may not be in the habit of saying no to dessert, but if I develop the habit of saying, wait a minute, hold on a second, let me think about it, come back in a couple of minutes and ask me again, then I've made a step and I'm on track for reaching my goals. Emotion is useful, but it shouldn't dictate our actions. So if good health is important, feelings about my diet should take a backseat to thinking. Well, there's the new philosophy. I hope you enjoyed it. If you got the fever, keep it. If you don't have it, I hope you caught it during this episode. And I will talk to you next time on Running a Fever.